But thanks to old archaeological records, we have a sense of what these forts looked like. Around 500 soldiers lived in each fort complex, which operated like a small walled town. They contained barracks for the soldiers, storehouses for food, workshops and temples. Watchtowers on the walls provided an unobstructed view for kilometers. But these forts weren't just for defense against invasion. They also protected the trade routes. Every pharaoh, including Thutmose, wanted access to the valuable raw materials of Nubia, including gold and human beings.
Egypt basically and historically looks south, not only for its conquest, but also for where it got its products. And one of those products that we tend to forget today was manpower. They would send caravans down that we would perhaps today call slave raiding caravans. And they would come back with thousands of Nubians.
Thutmose's southern campaign is successful. He returns from Nubia with large numbers of slaves. His officers turn them into paid, privileged soldiers because Nubian warriors are considered superb archers. Equipped with newly designed bows, they can inflict terrible injuries even from a great distance. Quietly, Thutmose builds a powerful army. The pharaoh is convinced he can't avoid war with the Mitanni. And for that, he'll need not just good soldiers, but more weapons. He fires up the foundries. His military workshops in Memphis forge axes and hatchets, spears and arrowheads of bronze, the weapons the Egyptians have long relied on. But Thutmose plays it a little differently this time, taking a page from Egypt's old enemy, the Hyksos. He's equipping his army with war chariots. The Egyptians have taken the old Hyksos chariot and radically improved it. We know what these chariots looked like from illustrations on Egyptian temple walls. And a perfectly preserved gilded ceremonial chariot was found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. It demonstrates in every detail how the Egyptians constructed their war machines. They built the chassis from bent wood. Extra spokes strengthened the wheels. The wide axle kept the chariot stable even in sharp turns. The leather fighting platform could absorb blows, and the chariot was held together by pins, sockets, and leather straps. Damaged parts could be exchanged. Soldiers could dismantle the chariot and carry it over long distances. Something never done before. Maneuvering this high-tech apparatus takes skill and lots of practice. Two men have to work together in a confined space, the driver and the archer. Chariot, horses and soldiers have to form a single unit to be able to react quickly in battle. Years of training were needed before they could go to war, so they could be sure of hitting their targets, moving at high speed over uneven ground. The young pharaoh enjoyed his time among his soldiers, far from life in the palace.
Those two things, the chariotry corps and the archers, owed a debt to the Hyksos, very definitely. But the Egyptians now developed these two arms into very, very important aspects of their army.
Thutmose has gathered more than 12,000 men under his command, the biggest army of its time. He now can put them to use because the Pharaoh has received important news. His aunt, Hatshepsut, is dead. It is the end of an era. Her memorial is a huge temple at Thebes. Built in her own lifetime, it celebrates the peaceful era of the most powerful woman in Egypt's history. Her ships set out to distant lands and returned home loaded with exotic woods, gold, and slaves. Hatshepsut is laid to rest in the Valley of the Kings. According to custom, the country mourns the regent's death for 70 days. And that gives Egypt's enemies to the northeast the opportunity they've been waiting for. It was time to join forces.
With Hatshepsut's sickening, the whole world began to know it. I mean, there was communication. And so it would appear to those forces that wanted to get back into Egypt that now was the time.
A powerful coalition of enemy princes gathers close to Megiddo, ready to strike west. For years, Thutmose has failed to take action against the Asian threat. Now, he has to act swiftly to forestall the enemy by attacking first. The Pharaoh leads his army northeast from Memphis through 400 kilometers of barren, hostile landscape to Gaza in Canaan. The desert has protected the Egyptians for thousands of years. Now, they have to cross it. They form a gigantic column. 12,000 men and 2,400 animals. An army this size needs regular supplies, including 50,000 liters of fresh water every day. Until recently, no one knew how they managed it. But new discoveries reveal the level of foresight and planning the Egyptians invested in these desert campaigns. Ancient stone route markers and millions of pottery fragments strewn in remote parts of the Sahara reveal forgotten trade routes. Surprisingly, the ancient Egyptians had no camels to make the journey. They had to rely on oxen and donkeys. And so they developed a sophisticated water supply system. Huge caravans headed out in front of the army, loaded with thousands of liters of water, creating artificial rest stops in the desert. Every 70 kilometers, these advanced units would set up stores of water, providing vitally needed refreshments for the following troops. Today, the millions of pottery fragments clearly indicate the ancient trade routes through the Sahara. They demonstrate the unquestioned coordination and cooperation so typical of ancient Egypt. After 10 days, Thutmose and his army reach Palestine. They have defeated the desert of Sinai. But 11 days' strenuous marching still separate them from their target. Megiddo, a fortified town perched strategically on a hilltop in modern-day Israel. Its lofty position makes sneak attacks against it virtually impossible. Today, fields carpet the area. Then it was a vital part of the trade route. It was here that Thutmose's enemies gathered.
If you're just here at Megiddo, you can command the Jezreel Valley. And if you command the valley, you command this whole region. So Megiddo is an extremely strategic place. Tutmosis III knew it. So did the Canaanite rebels. That's why they meet here. It's not only a great place to fight, but whoever wins controls the entire area.
Thutmose's army is just 30 kilometers from Megiddo. But now, the Carmel Mountains stand in their way. The pharaoh faces three choices. He can bypass the rugged hills, taking the northern or the southern route. Or he can attempt to cross them head-on. While the soldiers rest, Thutmose summons his generals to a war council. The mountains are treacherous, he is told. Crossing them is a fool's errand. His generals are quite clear about it. The soldiers have already endured a 4-week march. Traversing the mountain would only exhaust them before the coming battle. But Thutmose sees it differently, more strategically. The pharaoh's plan of action at this crucial moment is immortalized on the temple walls of Karnak. So important was his decision that the fate of Egypt depended on it. At moments like this, history is made.
As we see in this hieroglyphic record here, which actually are excerpts from the king's own diary, Pharaoh said, "No, I am going to go through the narrow pass so as not to give any impression to the enemy that I am weak or cowardly."
Thutmose orders the advance, straight over the mountains. A narrow and extended column of troops snakes its way uphill. Dismantled chariots slow their progress. As they crawl over the rocks, the troops are vulnerable to attack. But Thutmose knows it's too late to turn back. There's no time for second guessing. His men follow without question, but surely some believe they are marching to their deaths. The pharaoh suspects the enemy's leader, Canaanite king of Kadesh, positioned his troops along the northern and southern approaches to Megiddo. He can only hope the king left the mountain route undefended. The Egyptian troops struggle as the mountain pass squeezes tighter at every corner. Any moment now, the coalition forces could attack. The route is almost impassable. The soldiers barely make any progress. As tempers fray, Pharaoh is forced to acknowledge this may be a terrible mistake.